what do you think the possibilities are that you could actually have this law overturned as being overly broad?
I think it's unlikely to be overturned, not based on the Commerce Clause. I am not an expert on the Commerce Clause. You don't hear me say I'm not an expert on much. But the real linchpin of the bill and of this provision is actually the tax code. It is the power to tax, because the individual mandate is enforced through the tax code. Judge Hudson was very dismissive of the tax provision in here, which is enforced through the IRS, calling it a penalty instead of a tax. Now, it is money collected by the Internal Revenue Service through a provision that will now exist on your tax return. For him to simply say that is not a tax, I don't think will hold up long term. I think he may very well be sustained on the Commerce Clause.
You know what was fascinating about this is on the tax issue, the president told George Stephanopoulos this is not a tax.
It is a tax.
In fact, let's run the president denying that this health care bill contained a tax.
Now, under this mandate, the government is forcing people to spend money, fining you if you don't. How is that not a tax?
Well, hold on a second, George. For us to say that you've got to take a responsibility to get health insurance is absolutely not a tax increase.
Merriam-Webster's dictionary. Tax, a charge usually of money imposed by authority on persons or property for public purposes.
George, the fact that you looked up Merriam's dictionary, the definition of tax increase indicates to me that you're stretching a little bit right now.
Well, your critics say it is a tax increase.
My critics say everything's a tax increase, but
you reject that it's a tax increase.
I absolutely reject that notion.
And what's fascinating is that in arguing the case, the administration then went forward and the secretary said it's a tax.
Of course it is. Now, what you say on Good Morning America is actually not part of the court record when you're fighting these cases.
But the White House is saying it's a tax now.
Yeah, of course it is. They have to. I always knew they were going to say it was a tax once they went to court, because that, by the way, that's how Social Security withstood constitutional challenges. It was entirely within the power to tax. Without the tax, the specific tax for Social Security, it would have been ruled unconstitutional.
Let's bring in a lawyer here, Governor. You agreed with, I heard you agreeing with Lawrence. Yeah, of course it's a tax. Do you agree with Lawrence also, his take on the judge being a bit too flippant in dismissing this as a tax?
No, not at all. I thought it was actually funny with the Democratic congressman in Washington, of course, saying, no, it's not a tax, and then, of course, the lawyers arguing just the opposite for the benefit of the legal issues, and of course now Judge Hudson saying no, it's not a tax, it is actually a penalty. But I think they just they flat lose on the Commerce Clause issue, because here's what Judge Hudson said. He said the decision to not engage in commerce, meaning to not buy a product of insurance, is not engaging in commerce for purposes of the Commerce Clause, which means that the federal government doesn't have the ability to regulate. So I think they lose on that issue at the U.S. Supreme Court, and if they lose on that, I think the rest of the insurance provisions fail in the bill, and the whole system doesn't work if you don't have the individual mandate. So look, I think everybody wants to see greater access to health care at lower cost, but you can't do it in a way that violates the Constitution. That's what the court said yesterday.
Governor, I think one of the ironic things of this entire legal exercise is that you guys are fighting a mirage. The individual mandate is a ghost. It doesn't actually exist in the law, because when you get in there and read the enforceability of the individual mandate, there is none. The statute specifically says that you will have to pay this penalty if you don't have health insurance. But the most important thing to read about the penalty is what follows that, which is, what is the penalty for not paying the penalty on your tax return? And the penalty for not paying the penalty on your tax return is absolutely nothing. The IRS is specifically forbidden from trying to collect your penalty fee either through criminal action or civil action. So it's actually just a ghost. There really is no individual mandate in the bill. And as soon as the public finds that out, if this provision survives, the bill will actually have tremendous internal difficulty just on its own, because without the individual mandate, I can just wait and buy my insurance when I need it.
Governor, this bill has been so convoluted from the beginning. You talked to members of Congress about these points that Lawrence has been bringing up for 6 months.
They don't even know they're there.
They have The people that have been their loudest champion of this health care bill, they don't even know what's in it.